Most people believe comfort is the reward. You work hard, endure uncertainty, push through instability, and eventually you earn the right to relax, to settle, to finally feel safe. That belief is deeply ingrained, and on the surface it sounds reasonable. Comfort is framed as the destination, the proof that the struggle meant something. But comfort is not neutral. Comfort is a state your nervous system adapts to, and once it adapts, it begins to protect it. What most people call comfort isn't peace. It's familiarity. It's waking up already knowing how the day will feel, knowing what's expected of you, knowing which emotions are likely to show up and which ones you won't have to deal with. Even when that familiarity feels limiting, it feels predictable, and predictability feels safe. The nervous system prioritizes the known over the better. It always has. This is why people stay in jobs they've clearly outgrown, relationships that feel emotionally flat, and routines that no longer inspire them. Not because they lack awareness or ambition, but because ambition introduces uncertainty, and uncertainty feels unsafe to a system designed for survival, not fulfillment. Your nervous system doesn't evaluate your future based on potential, meaning, or possibility. It evaluates based on history. If your current environment hasn't seriously harmed you, even if it hasn't nourished you, your system labels it as safe. Once something is labeled safe, it becomes protected. That's where the trap forms. Comfort quietly teaches you that stillness is stability, that staying is maturity, that disruption is danger. It trains you to associate movement with risk and familiarity with wisdom. Comfort doesn't ask whether you're growing. It doesn't ask whether you're alive inside. It only asks whether you can survive another day without change. Over time, this trade-off becomes invisible. You don't feel trapped. You don't feel broken. You feel reasonable, responsible. You feel like someone who's being realistic about life. And that's what makes comfort so powerful. It doesn't shout. It soothes. And while it soothes you, it quietly keeps you exactly where you are. Comfort becomes dangerous when it starts disguising itself as alignment. You begin telling yourself things like, "This is fine," or "I shouldn't complain," or "at least it's stable." Those statements sound grounded and mature, and on the surface they feel responsible. But very often they're coping mechanisms. They help you tolerate a life that no longer fits by lowering emotional friction. Comfort dulls the internal signal that something is off. Not all discomfort is a problem. Some discomfort is information. It's your system quietly signaling that your capacity has expanded beyond your current container. But comfort smooths that signal out. It lowers urgency. It numbs dissatisfaction. It quiets curiosity. And when the signal fades, you assume the situation is workable, when in reality you've simply adapted. This is how comfort keeps you in places you've already outgrown. You don't feel trapped, you feel tired. You don't feel angry, you feel fine. You don't feel misaligned, you feel settled. You start managing your life instead of living it. You become careful with your words, careful with your hopes, careful with your expectations. You stop asking for more, not because you don't want it, but because asking for more would force you to confront what you've been tolerating. You don't feel compelled to act. You just feel content enough not to move. That's why comfort is seductive. It doesn't feel like failure. It feels like relief. Relief from uncertainty. Relief from responsibility. Relief from the pressure of becoming someone new. Because becoming someone new requires releasing identities that once kept you safe. And your nervous system resists that even when those identities are outdated. Sometimes the resistance looks practical. a new opportunity appears, and your mind immediately starts listing reasons it won't work. You tell yourself you'll do it later, once you have more time, more clarity, more confidence. You interpret hesitation as intuition. You call avoidance being realistic, and you don't notice how quickly your system searches for certainty before it will allow you to move. This is why growth opportunities often trigger hesitation instead of excitement. You don't consciously reject them, you delay, you overthink. You wait for the moment when it feels completely safe. But over time, waiting becomes avoidance. Movement starts to feel heavy. Your tolerance for discomfort shrinks. Your confidence becomes conditional. Comfort doesn't stop you directly. It convinces you to stop yourself. Here's what makes comfort especially difficult to recognize. It doesn't stop growth abruptly. It slows it quietly. You don't wake up one day feeling trapped. There's no dramatic moment where everything clearly falls apart. Instead, things begin to repeat. Days start to blur together. Weeks feel busy but strangely empty. Life feels full, yet smaller than it used to. You're functioning, but you're not expanding. Your nervous system learns that minimal movement equals minimal threat, so it begins optimizing for sameness, same routines, same emotional range, same expectations. The system decides that if nothing changes, nothing bad can happen. Sameness starts to feel calm. But this calm isn't the calm of inner order or confidence. It's the calm of low demand. It's the calm that comes from not being stretched, not being challenged, not being asked to adapt. True calm comes from self-trust, from knowing you can handle uncertainty and respond to life as it unfolds. Comfort-based calm comes from avoidance. One is grounded, the other is guarded. When comfort dominates, ambition begins to feel heavy, curiosity fades, risk starts to look unnecessary. You stop asking, what else is possible? And start asking, why disrupt what's already working? But working is not the same as aligned. Your system may be regulated, but your identity becomes static. You're no longer evolving, you're maintaining. This is why stagnation rarely announces itself loudly. It doesn't come with panic or obvious dissatisfaction. It settles in quietly, disguised as contentment. You tell yourself you should be grateful. You remind yourself that others have it worse. You downplay the feeling that something is missing. Often, what shows up instead is restlessness without direction, a low-level irritation, a sense of boredom that feels unjustified. You feel guilty for wanting more because nothing is technically wrong. So you suppress the signal. But suppressed signals don't disappear. They go underground. They show up as procrastination, as distraction, as fatigue that doesn't seem to have a clear cause. Your system is conserving energy because it no longer sees a reason to grow. Comfort teaches you how to stay the same. And the longer you stay the same, the more effort it takes to imagine movement at all. When you begin to outgrow comfort, something subtle starts to surface. Not panic, not anxiety, restlessness. A quiet internal pressure that doesn't feel dramatic, but doesn't go away either. It's the sense that something more is required of you, even if you can't fully explain what that more is yet. This restlessness is often misunderstood. People label it dissatisfaction, ingratitude, or even self-sabotage. They tell themselves they should be happy, that nothing is technically wrong, that this feeling is a flaw in their mindset, but it isn't. Restlessness is often a signal of readiness. It means your nervous system has accumulated enough stability to consider expansion. You're no longer just trying to survive. There's capacity now, and with capacity comes friction, because growth requires your system to reorganize. Growth rarely begins with confidence. It begins with discomfort. Comfort encourages you to suppress that discomfort, to distract yourself, to stay busy, to scroll, to numb, to rationalize. Anything that keeps you from sitting with the feeling that something needs to change. But when you stop suppressing it, something important happens. Your tolerance for uncertainty starts to increase. You begin allowing yourself to sit with not knowing. Your emotional range expands. You feel more deeply, not just the pleasant emotions, but the unsettling ones too. And you realize that feeling unsettled doesn't mean you're unsafe. Each time you move while uncertainty is present, you teach your nervous system something new. You show it that discomfort does not equal collapse, that unfamiliar territory doesn't automatically lead to harm, that you can adapt. This is how self-trust is built, not through thinking your way into confidence, but through experience, through taking small steps without guarantees, through letting yourself feel stretched without immediately pulling back. As this happens, comfort slowly loses its authority. It no longer gets the final say in your decisions. You start choosing based on what feels true instead of what feels familiar. And for the first time in a long while, growth stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a conversation you're finally ready to have. Comfort is not the enemy, but confusing comfort with safety is. True safety does not come from predictability. It comes from adaptability. It comes from knowing that when things shift, when plans fall apart, when emotions rise unexpectedly, you can respond instead of freeze. Comfort promises protection by keeping everything the same. Real safety comes from trusting yourself to handle change. Comfort that keeps you small is not protection, it is preservation. And preservation over time becomes a cage. When your life is organized around avoiding discomfort, every decision gets filtered through one question. Will this keep me comfortable? Not, will this help me grow? Not, is this true for me? Just, will this disturb what I already know how to manage? That question quietly shapes who you become. You become cautious, measured, careful. You learn how to keep things running smoothly, but you slowly lose touch with the parts of yourself that want more depth, more honesty, more aliveness. You stop taking emotional risks. You stop saying the thing you really mean. You stop moving toward what excites you, because excitement often comes bundled with uncertainty. And yet, underneath all of that careful living, something continues to stir. A sense that you were meant for more than maintenance, more than repetition, more than managing the same version of life over and over again. Growth does not require chaos. It does not require blowing everything up or abandoning responsibility. It requires courage, but not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that listens to discomfort without immediately numbing it, the kind that allows uncertainty to exist without demanding immediate answers. This is where freedom actually begins, not when life becomes perfectly safe, but when you trust yourself enough to move even when it isn't. Comfort may feel safe, familiarity may feel soothing, but expansion is where you become resilient. Expansion is where you become flexible. Expansion is where you become free. And the moment you stop mistaking comfort for safety, you give yourself permission to live again.